Hello viewers, my name is Joe. After attending The Ohio State University from 1978 to 1982, majoring in criminology and criminal justice, I worked at the historic Ohio State Reformatory, located in Mansfield, Ohio. Most people know the Reformatory as the location where the movie The Shawshank Redemption was filmed in 1994. The Reformatory is pictured in the foreground of this aerial photograph, which I found on the internet several years ago. I worked at the Reformatory as a correction officer from May 28, 1984 to December 30, 1990, when it was closed under federal court orders for being inhumanely overcrowded and unsanitary in violation of the inmates' constitutional rights. I can attest to the fact that working conditions were not much better than the inmate living conditions. I was one of, if not the, very last correction officer to transfer along with the last inmates to the then new neighboring state-of-the-art Mansfield Correctional Institution, also known as Mancy, shown here in the background and circled in red. I had been active and successful as a union steward, lead steward, and chief steward with the union that represented the correction officers and other staff at the Reformatory. I would later go on to become the chapter president at Mancy. During my time with the union, I had an unprecedented 85% success rate and won over $1 million in back pay from my coworkers who were wrongfully fired or suspended. I had proposed during labor management meetings that we transfer from the old to the new prison by seniority so that our seniority would remain intact. But management, particularly the warden, insisted on micromanaging our transfer and saw to it that I transferred on the very last day, having the effect of my having the lowest seniority when we transferred despite my years of service. I eventually won my seniority back through the successful resolution of my so-called frivolous grievance, which to this date governs seniority with employees who transfer from established prisons to new prisons within the first 60 days of operation. I am also remembered for being instrumental in getting the statewide grooming policy changed, allowing correction officers to have beards. The Reformatory was one of 2 prisons in the state of Ohio at the time which did not allow correction officers to have beards. During my time at Mancy, I eventually overcame management's dislike towards me and went on to become correction sergeant, correction lieutenant, and acting correction captain. This is my reissued Reformatory photo identification card on the left and my Reformatory badge or shield on the right. The Reformatory's major apparently watched my video titled My Ohio State Reformatory Ghost Stories No. 1 and threw a hissy fit on a Facebook post accusing me of stealing these items. You may find it amusing that after I put him in his place, he blocked me. And for the record, I'm not a thief. Shortly after I transferred from OSR to Mancy in December 1990, I attempted to turn these items over to the Deputy Warden of Operations and was informed that it was not necessary and that I could keep them as souvenirs, so to speak. And the last time I checked, a Deputy Warden still outranks a Major. It's a good thing I had the foresight to get this put in writing in anticipation of the Major's frivolous and outrageous accusations 36 years later. In any event, I was badge number 134, and in addition to it, I still have my Reformatory bus driver cap and matching hat badge, as well as my Reformatory nightstick, handcuffs, and other memorabilia, which you will see in future videos I have been able to successfully use as trigger objects. One can find lots of photographs of the Reformatory on the internet. This is one of my favorites for 2 reasons. Number 1, because I actually knew Wally, who went up in a plane and took this picture and sold 5x7 copies to his coworkers for $5 each. And number 2, because my truck, the original red racer, is parked in the East Cell Block parking lot. Can you see it circled in red? It's hard to tell, but I know because it's where I parked every day. It was a 1978 Ford Courier pickup truck, which I purchased in 1981 and drove until 1988 or thereabouts. But I digress. Please enjoy this story. This is a photograph taken around 1985 of the Ohio State Reformatory as viewed from the west, which I found on the internet several years ago. Today's story features a ghostly vision I experienced during the fall of 1985 as a correction officer assigned to foot patrol on the second shift while clearing the high school, which was located across from the rec yard and next to the gymnasium. The high school was the newest building erected inside the reformatory's 25-foot high walls. I'm guessing that it was built during the 1950s or 1960s. Circled in red in this slide, it was known as Fields High School. It was a two-floored building in which inmates could receive an education and an actual high school diploma, as opposed to GED. Should you ever come across a high school diploma issued by Fields High School, Mansfield, Ohio, it was issued here. There was no mention of the Reformatory or the Department of Rehabilitation and Corrections on the face of the diploma, just Fields High School. I'm not sure how the high school derived its name. Rather than being named after an educator with the surname Fields, I'm guessing that it could have been a vague reference or inside joke to inmates' referral of the Mansfield prison as the Field. During count times, foot patrol officers were required to clear all the buildings inside the walls, except for the east and west cell blocks. I cropped this picture of the Fields High School from a photo I found on Facebook. Foot patrol officers were only required to do a walkthrough of each floor and to check the inmate restrooms and to make sure the offices, classrooms, and closets were locked. We had keys to the classroom, but were not required to enter them unless we had a good reason. One day, during the fall of 1985, I entered the high school from the east entrance, and as I was checking doorknobs to assure that the doors to all the classrooms were locked, something caught my eye in the second classroom on the right, on the first floor. The classroom doors at the Fields High School were of wooden construction, with a large glass window, similar to the one pictured here. Upon my placing my face up to the classroom door window and looking into the classroom, I saw an older man in a white shirt looking back at me. He had short gray hair and crow's feet round his eyes. He only peered for a few seconds and then dissipated, as I immediately grabbed my keys to unlock the classroom. As I unlocked the door, I grabbed my handcuffs and entered the classroom. I turned on the lights and searched the classroom, looking under the teachers' and the students' desks, and checked the windows, which were all locked. The classroom was empty. As I have told this story many times over the years, I am frequently asked if I'm sure it was not my own reflection in the classroom door window that I saw. It was not. I was much younger then. I did not have gray hair, and I did not have crow's feet around my eyes. And I was not wearing a white shirt. I was wearing a gray uniform shirt, black jacket, black necktie, and the department baseball cap similar to the one I'm wearing in this recent photo of me. About 25 years later, I was a Cub Master with the Cub Scouts Pack 4387 at the Madison South Elementary School in Mansfield, Ohio. During campouts, as we would sit around the campfire telling stories, my scouts would always ask me to tell them ghost stories, particularly ghost stories that involved the reformatory, once they learned that I used to work there. Upon hearing so many of my stories, several of the parents suggested that I ought to write a book consisting of my reformatory ghost stories. Taking these parents' advice, I have. I just haven't gotten around to getting it published. During my years at the reformatory, the inmate uniform consisted of a light blue shirt and dark blue pants, similar to the one pictured here, except they had short sleeves, and we would never, and I mean never, allow an inmate's shirt to go untucked. While conducting research for my aforementioned book, I learned that decades before I started working at the reformatory, Inmates wore a white uniform, which would explain why the entity I saw was wearing white. So, did I see a ghost of an older inmate wearing a white uniform in one of the classrooms at the Reformatory's Fields High School back in 1985? To my knowledge, no inmate, nor anyone else, ever died in the high school, so I'm not sure why a ghost would have been hanging around as I cleared buildings while assigned to foot patrol. Also, while there were plenty of exceptions over the years, the reformatory primarily housed younger inmates between the ages 16 and 30, and the entity I saw was definitely older, with gray hair. Like the furniture factory discussed in my last story, the Fields High School was demolished, and the area where it stood is now part of the parking lot at the Richland Correctional Institution. In any event, I hope you enjoyed this story as I enjoyed presenting it. And this is Ghost Hunter Joe saying goodbye and hope to see you next time. If you have enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe. And this is Ghost Hunter Joe saying goodbye and thanks for watching.